Chapter 1. The Outsider. The royal court of Zenithus was a glittering hub of galactic diplomacy, its towering crystalline spires piercing the orange skies of the Zenithan capital. Inside its grand halls, nobles from across the galaxy mingled in a sea of exotic silks, shimmering biolights, and auras of bioluminescent prestige. For centuries, the Zenithan kingdom had dominated the galactic core, thriving on its reputation for technological innovation, military might, and an aristocracy steeped in ancient traditions. At the heart of this splendor sat King Daryan Valtris, a ruler respected as much for his wisdom as for his iron will. The Zenithan nobility worshipped him, and his every decree was met with dutiful reverence. This made the king's latest decision particularly scandalous. He had invited a human to the court. Humans were regarded as a backwater species, primitive and brutish in the eyes of the Zenithan elite. Though they had gained some recognition for their resilience during the Outer Rim Wars, they were still seen as a curiosity at best and an annoyance at worst. This made the arrival of Commander Ethan Kale, a human military envoy, a subject of mockery and thinly veiled contempt among the aristocrats. The Trellis sisters. Among those most vocal in their disdain for the human was the trio of Trellis sisters, three noblewomen known as much for their beauty as for their sharp tongues. Lyria, the eldest, was a commanding figure with emerald green skin that shimmered like polished jade. Her piercing, luminescent eyes made lesser beings avert their gaze, and her wit was as cutting as her regal presence. Valera, the middle sister, was fiery and impulsive, with fiery orange hair and a gaze that seemed to burn with unyielding confidence. Her sharp tongue and biting humor left many in tears, though her playful smile always softened the blow. Elina, the youngest, was deceptively quiet, her silver hair flowing like moonlight as she lingered in her sister's shadows. Yet her whispered comments, often laced with devastating irony, were feared by all. When the human arrived at court, the sisters wasted no time in ridiculing him. "You mean to tell me this creature fought in the Outer Rim Wars?" Lyria said, her voice dripping with skepticism as she watched Ethan enter the hall. Valera smirked, her golden eyes glinting. "I've seen sturdier beings as servants. How does one like him survive combat?" Elina chuckled softly, her voice like a gentle breeze. "Perhaps he plays dead. That's what humans are best at, isn't it?" Their laughter echoed through the grand hall, drawing the attention of nearby nobles. Ethan, who had been walking with quiet confidence, paused. He turned toward the sisters, his piercing blue eyes meeting Lyria's in a moment of charged silence. "Mockery," he said calmly, his voice steady, "is often the refuge of those too afraid to confront their own insecurities." The sisters blinked, momentarily taken aback. Valera's smirk faltered, and Elina's quiet chuckle died on her lips. Lyria, however, quickly recovered, her lips curling into a condescending smile. "And arrogance," she retorted, "is often the refuge of those too insignificant to know their place." Ethan gave a small, enigmatic smile. "Perhaps. Or perhaps it's the confidence of someone who's already proven his worth on the battlefield." Before Lyria could respond, a booming voice echoed through the hall. "Commander Ethan Kale." The crowd parted as King Daryan Valtris entered the room, his imposing figure clad in ornate robes that shimmered with embedded starlight. The sisters immediately bowed their heads, as did the rest of the court. Ethan inclined his head respectfully, though his stance remained unyielding. "You honor us with your presence," the king said, his deep voice resonating through the hall. "I trust the court has made you feel welcome?" Ethan glanced briefly at the sisters before replying, "Your Majesty, the hospitality of Zenithus is memorable." King Darion's sharp gaze lingered on the Trellis sisters for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he turned back to Ethan. "Good. We have much to discuss, Commander. Come, walk with me." As the king led Ethan away, the sisters exchanged glances. Valera's playful smirk returned, though there was a hint of unease in her eyes. "This will be entertaining," she said softly. An unusual proposition. The next day, rumors began to circulate through the court. Ethan had not only impressed the king with his strategic insights, but had also been offered a significant role in the Zenithan military move that further scandalized the nobility. Humans, after all, were rarely granted positions of power within the kingdom. The sisters were incredulous. "Surely this is some elaborate jest," Lyria said, pacing the lavish sitting room they shared. "The king would never grant such an honor to that." "And yet he has," Valera said, lounging on a chaise. "Perhaps the king has gone mad." Alina, who had been quietly sipping a glass of crystalline nectar, tilted her head thoughtfully. "Or perhaps there's more to this human than we realize." Lyria scoffed. "You can't be serious. He's a novelty at best, a primitive savage with no understanding of our culture." "Perhaps," Elina murmured. "But he stood against us without flinching. How many others can say the same?" Before Lyria could respond, a royal courier entered the room, bowing deeply. "My ladies, His Majesty requests your presence in the throne room." The king's command. The sisters arrived at the throne room to find the king seated on his ornate throne, Ethan standing at his side. The court was unusually quiet, the air heavy with anticipation. "Your Majesty," Lyria said, bowing gracefully, "you summoned us?" "I did," King Daryan said, his voice steady. "I have made a decision that concerns the three of you." The sisters exchanged uneasy glances. "Commander Ethan Kale has proven himself a valuable ally," the king continued. "His courage, intellect, and dedication have earned my respect. Therefore, I have decided to strengthen the bonds between our peoples." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the sisters. "You will marry him?" The room erupted into shocked murmurs. Lyria's eyes widened in disbelief. "Your Majesty, surely you jest dash." "I do not," the king interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "The three of you will unite with Commander Kale in a ceremonial marriage. Together, you will represent the alliance between Zenithus and humanity." Valera's jaw dropped. "You can't be serious." "I am," the king said firmly. "This union is not negotiable." Alina remained silent, her expression unreadable, though her silver eyes flicked toward Ethan, who stood quietly, his face impassive. Lyria took a step forward, her voice trembling with indignation. "Your Majesty, we are noblewomen of Zenithus. We cannot be expected to marry a human." The king's gaze hardened. "You will do as I command, Lyria, unless, of course, you wish to relinquish your titles and be cast from the court." The color drained from Lyria's face. Valera clenched her fists, her fiery temper barely contained. "This is madness." "Enough," the king said, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "You will prepare for the ceremony. That is final." The sisters had no choice but to bow and leave the throne room, their minds reeling with shock and anger. Ethan watched them go, his expression unreadable. The humans resolved. As the sisters stormed back to their quarters, their emotions ran high. "This is a humiliation," Lyria said, her voice shaking with rage. "We are being punished." "For what?" Valera snapped. "Mocking a human? It was hardly a crime." Alina, who had remained quiet, finally spoke. "Perhaps we underestimated him." Lyria turned on her, her emerald eyes blazing. "You're defending him?" "No," Elina said softly, "but I think we may have much to learn from him." Meanwhile, Ethan stood in his chambers, staring out at the Zenithan capital. He hadn't asked for this marriage, but he understood its significance. If this union could bring peace between their peoples, he was willing to endure the sisters' scorn. For now. Chapter 2. Bridging the Divide. The days following King Darion's announcement were a whirlwind of preparation. The grand ceremonial hall in the Zenithan capital was being transformed into a spectacle of intergalactic splendor, with delegates from across the galaxy invited to witness the unprecedented union between the Trellis sisters and the human, Commander Ethan Kale. But inside the palace, tensions were running high. The sisters' resistance. In their private chambers, the Trellis sisters were fuming. "This is an outrage," Lyria hissed, pacing back and forth. Her emerald green skin glimmered faintly, reflecting the anger that burned within her. "How dare the king force us into this mockery of a marriage?" Valera lounged on a chaise, her fiery orange hair spilling over her shoulders like a cascade of flames. She smirked, though her golden eyes burned with defiance. "We could always refuse. Let the king strip us of our titles." "And be cast out of the court? Exiled from our home?" Lyria shot back. You'd really risk that for your pride? Valera shrugged, but her smirk faltered. It's better than bowing to a human. Alina, the quietest of the three, sat by the window, her silver hair catching the light of the setting suns. She hadn't spoken much since the king's decree, but now she turned to face her sisters. We don't have a choice, she said softly. If we fight this, we lose everything. And besides, she hesitated, her silver eyes thoughtful. Perhaps there's more to him than we think. Lyria scoffed. You're defending him now? No, Elina said, her voice calm but firm. I'm saying that we don't know him. Mocking someone we don't understand has brought us here. Maybe it's time we tried to understand him instead. Her words hung in the air, and for once, neither Lyria nor Valera had a sharp retort. The first meeting. Ethan, too, had mixed feelings about the marriage. Though he understood the king's reasoning strengthening the alliance between Zenithus and Earth, he wasn't thrilled about being thrust into the role of a political pawn. Still, he resolved to make the best of the situation. When the time came for Ethan to formally meet the sisters, the tension was palpable. The meeting took place in one of the palace's ornate lounges, its walls adorned with intricate carvings and glowing crystalline chandeliers. The sisters entered first, their elegant gowns shimmering with the bioluminescent fabrics unique to Zenithan fashion. They moved with the poise of royalty, their disdain for the situation hidden behind carefully crafted expressions. Ethan stood as they approached, dressed in a simple but formal Terran uniform. His blue eyes were calm, his posture respectful yet unyielding. Ladies, he said with a slight bow. Lyria inclined her head stiffly. Valera crossed her arms, her golden eyes narrowing as she studied him. Alina offered a small nod, her expression neutral. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence stretched uncomfortably, broken only when Valera let out a sharp laugh. So, this is the great human warrior we've heard so much about, she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. You don't look like much. Ethan met her gaze without flinching. Looks can be deceiving, he said evenly. Valera smirked, clearly enjoying the challenge. Perhaps, but I can't imagine what you could possibly offer us, other than embarrassment. Lyria placed a hand on Valera's arm, her voice sharp. Enough, Valera. We're here to discuss terms, not trade insults. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Terms? Lyria folded her arms, her emerald eyes cold. If we're going to be forced into this arrangement, we have certain expectations. You may have won the king's favor, but that doesn't mean you've earned ours. Ethan nodded slowly. Fair enough. What do you want from me? Lyria tilted her head, her gaze assessing. Respect, for one. And boundaries. We are not your servants, and we expect you to act accordingly. I don't need servants, Ethan replied. I need allies. Partners. That gave Lyria pause, though she quickly masked her reaction. Alina, who had been quietly observing the exchange, spoke up. And what do you expect from us? Ethan turned to her, his expression softening slightly. I expect nothing but honesty. I'm not here to control you or make demands. All I ask is that we approach this with an open mind. Alina studied him for a moment, her silver eyes thoughtful. An open mind, she repeated. That's more than most here would offer. Valera rolled her eyes, muttering something under her breath, but Lyria sighed. Very well, she said reluctantly. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt. For now. A show of strength. The following days were filled with preparations for the wedding, but the tension between Ethan and the sisters remained. Determined to earn their respect, Ethan decided to take a different approach. During a training session with the Zenithan Royal Guard, Ethan demonstrated his combat skills in a sparring match against one of the kingdom's top warriors, a towering alien named Korak with 4 arms and razor-sharp reflexes. The sisters, curious despite themselves, watched from the sidelines. This should be amusing, Valera muttered, smirking. But as the match began, it became clear that Ethan was no ordinary human. Though Korak was faster and stronger, Ethan's agility and tactical thinking allowed him to hold his own. He anticipated Korak's moves, using the alien's size and momentum against him. When Ethan finally disarmed Korak with a well-timed strike, the sisters were visibly impressed, though none of them would admit it. Not bad, Elina said quietly, a hint of a smile on her lips. Lyria remained silent, but her gaze lingered on Ethan, her expression unreadable. A subtle shift. Over the next few days, the sisters began to see Ethan in a different light. He wasn't the brutish savage they had expected. He was intelligent, resourceful, and surprisingly respectful. One evening, as they dined together in the palace gardens, Ethan shared stories of his time in the Outer Rim Wars, the battles he had fought, the allies he had lost, and the resilience of humanity in the face of overwhelming odds. "You fought for your people," Elina said softly, "even when the odds were against you." Ethan nodded. It wasn't just about survival. It was about protecting something worth fighting for. Valera, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. "And now you're fighting for this alliance. For us." Ethan met her gaze. "I am. Even if it means enduring your mockery." Valera smirked, though there was a flicker of respect in her eyes. Lyria, meanwhile, studied him with a thoughtful expression. "Perhaps we misjudged you," she said finally. Ethan smiled faintly. "Perhaps." Chapter 3. The Challenge. The royal gardens of Zenithus, sprawling and filled with luminous flora, served as a perfect backdrop for the growing complexity of the relationships between Ethan Cale and the Trellis sisters. The tension that had once defined their interactions was slowly giving way to something more nuanced. The sisters, though still wary, began to recognize qualities in Ethan that defied their expectations. But just as progress was being made, the Council of Nobles intervened. An ultimatum. During a formal court assembly, a coalition of influential nobles voiced their disdain for the impending marriage. "This union threatens the dignity of the Zenithan aristocracy," declared Lord Krathus, a towering figure with crimson skin and piercing black eyes. "How can we allow our kingdom's most esteemed noblewomen to be bound to a human?" The murmurs of agreement rippled through the court. Even among the progressive voices of the king's allies, doubt lingered. King Daryan, seated on his crystalline throne, silenced the chamber with a single raised hand. "Ethan Cale has earned my trust and respect. His actions during the Outer Rim Wars and his recent service to this court prove his worth. But if you doubt him, then let him prove himself further." The king turned his gaze to Ethan, who stood at the foot of the throne, flanked by the Trellis sisters. "Commander Cale," the king said, his voice steady, "you will face the trial of kings, a test of strength, intellect, and character. Should you succeed, there will be no further objections to this union." Ethan inclined his head. "I accept, Your Majesty." Lyria, Valera, and Elina exchanged worried glances. Preparing for the trial. The trial of kings was an ancient Zenithan tradition, originally designed to test heirs to the throne. Over the centuries, it had evolved into a brutal gauntlet of challenges that pushed participants to their limits. The sisters were quick to voice their concerns once they returned to their chambers. "This is madness," Lyria said, pacing the room. "The trial is designed for Zenithans, not humans. He won't stand a chance." "Maybe that's the point," Valera said darkly. "The council wants him to fail." Elina, seated by the window, turned to Ethan. "You don't have to do this. The king's decree alone should be enough to secure the alliance." Ethan shook his head. "If I back down now, it'll only confirm their doubts. I'm not just fighting for myself, I am fighting for this alliance, and for the respect your people deserve to see in me." For once, the sisters had no retort. The trial begins. The trial of kings was held in the Arena of Luminaries, a massive amphitheater carved into the mountains outside the Zenithan capital. Thousands of spectators gathered to witness the event, their bioluminescent garments glowing like a sea of stars. The trial consisted of 3 stages, each designed to test a different aspect of a contender's worthiness. Stage 1. The Gauntlet of Strength. The first challenge was a test of physical endurance and combat skill. Ethan was armed with a plasma blade and a lightweight shield, facing off against a series of opponents, each more formidable than the last. The Trellis sisters watched anxiously from the royal box as Ethan stepped into the arena. Lyria, despite her earlier doubts, found herself gripping the railing tightly. The first opponent, a towering Zenithan warrior armed with twin axes, charged at Ethan with brute force. But Ethan's agility and tactical thinking gave him an edge. He dodged the warrior's attacks, using the shield to deflect blows before delivering precise strikes with his blade. As the crowd roared, Valera leaned toward Elina. "I hate to admit it, but he's impressive." Elina smiled faintly. More than we gave him credit for. Stage 2. The Labyrinth of Intellect. The second challenge took place in the Crystal Labyrinth, a sprawling maze filled with holographic puzzles, traps, and riddles. Here, Ethan's military training and quick thinking proved invaluable. As he navigated the maze, solving puzzles and disarming traps, the sisters began to see a new side of him, resourcefulness and determination that set him apart from the arrogant nobles they had grown up with. "He's not just a soldier," Lyria murmured, her tone thoughtful. "No," Elina agreed. "He's something more." Stage 3. The Trial of Character. The final challenge was the most unpredictable. Ethan was presented with a moral dilemma. Save a group of innocent Zenithan citizens trapped in a simulated disaster, or pursue the artifact that would secure his victory. The spectators watched in tense silence as Ethan made his choice. Without hesitation, he prioritized the lives of the citizens, using his skills and ingenuity to guide them to safety. Though it cost him precious time, his decision resonated deeply with the crowd and with the Trellis sisters. "He didn't have to do that," Valera said quietly. "He chose to," Elina replied, "because it was the right thing to do." Victory and recognition. As the trial concluded, the arena erupted in cheers. Ethan had not only completed the challenges, but had done so with honor and integrity. King Daryan rose from his throne, his voice carrying across the amphitheater. "Commander Ethan Kale has proven himself worthy not only of this court, but of the alliance between our peoples. Let no one question his place here again." The nobles who had once mocked Ethan were now forced to applaud, their expressions a mix of begrudging respect and awe. The Trellis sisters approached Ethan as he exited the arena, their earlier disdain replaced by genuine admiration. "You surprised us," Lyria admitted, her emerald eyes softening. Valera smirked, though it lacked her usual bite. "I'll give you this, you're not half as insufferable as I thought." Elina smiled warmly. "You've earned our respect, Ethan, and perhaps something more." Ethan looked at them, his gaze steady. "I'm not here to replace your lives or force this marriage on you. But if we're going to do this, I want it to mean something. Not for politics, but for us." The sisters exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. For the first time, they saw Ethan not as a rival or a burden, but as a man who could stand beside them as an equal. Chapter 4. A Union Forged in Fire. The royal court of Zenithus was abuzz with anticipation. The union ceremony, an unprecedented alliance between humanity and the Zenithan nobility, was set to take place that evening. Ethan Kale had proven his worth during the Trial of Kings, earning the respect of not only the court, but also the Trellis sisters, who had once dismissed him as beneath them. But even as the court prepared for the festivities, a shadow loomed over the kingdom. The hidden threat. In the weeks leading up to the ceremony, intelligence reports had warned of a growing threat from the Skarn Collective, a rogue faction intent on destabilizing the Zenithan kingdom. The Skarn were notorious for their ability to infiltrate and sabotage, and rumors suggested they had agents within the palace itself. King Daryan, ever the strategist, saw an opportunity in the union. "The ceremony must proceed," he told his advisors. "If the Skarn strike, we will be ready. And if Commander Kale and the Trellis sisters are truly united, they will stand as a symbol of our resilience." The sisters and Ethan were briefed on the threat, but told to proceed with the ceremony as planned. While the sisters were understandably anxious, Ethan remained calm. "Let them come," he said. "We'll show them what this alliance is capable of." The ceremony begins. The grand hall was a sight to behold, its crystalline walls glowing with vibrant colors that reflected the bioluminescent flora decorating the space. Delegates from across the galaxy filled the hall, their varied appearances adding to the splendor of the occasion. Ethan stood at the center of the hall, flanked by the sisters. Each of them wore ceremonial attire that blended the styles of their respective cultures, a visual representation of the unity they were forging. As King Daryan presided over the ceremony, the atmosphere was one of cautious optimism. The nobles who had once opposed the union now watched with a mix of respect and curiosity. When the vows were exchanged, the sisters spoke with sincerity that surprised even themselves. "I once thought you were unworthy," Lyria said, her emerald eyes meeting Ethan's. "But you've shown me that strength is more than power. It's resilience, honor, and the courage to stand for what's right. You've proven me wrong, Valera admitted, wry smile softening her fiery gaze. And I'm not one to admit when I'm wrong. You've earned my trust and my loyalty. You've taught me, Elena said softly, that there's more to unity than shared blood. It's about shared purpose, and I believe in ours. Ethan, moved by their words, replied simply but earnestly. I promise to honor and respect each of you not as a duty, but because I see the strength and wisdom you bring to this union. Together, we're stronger than any of us could be alone. The attack. As the ceremony reached its climax, a low hum began to resonate through the hall. At first, it seemed like part of the proceedings, but Ethan's instincts told him otherwise. His sharp eyes scanned the crowd, catching a flicker of movement near the edge of the room. Suddenly, the lights dimmed, and the hall was plunged into chaos. The hum grew louder, morphing into a piercing screech as Skarn collective operatives revealed themselves. Clad in black, chitinous armor, they moved with deadly precision, targeting key figures in the room. The sisters instinctively moved to shield the king, but Ethan stepped forward, drawing the ceremonial blade he had worn for the occasion. Stay close to the king, he ordered. I'll handle this. A test of unity. The Skarn operatives were well trained, but they hadn't anticipated the combined strength of Ethan and the Trellis sisters. Lyria, using her natural zenith and agility, leapt onto a nearby platform and rained down precision strikes with her energy whip, disabling enemy weapons. Valera, fueled by her fiery temperament, wielded a plasma staff with deadly efficiency, her movements a blur of controlled chaos. Elena, though quieter, used her intelligence to disable the Skarn's communications, disrupting their coordination. Ethan, meanwhile, fought with the discipline of a seasoned soldier. His blade moved with precision, cutting through the enemy ranks as he barked orders to rally the guards and protect the civilians. For the first time, the sisters and Ethan fought as a team, their combined efforts overwhelming the attackers. The turning point. As the battle raged, a massive Skarn warrior emerged, a hulking brute clad in reinforced armor. It made its way toward the king, cutting down anyone in its path. Ethan and the sisters converged on the warrior, their attacks coordinated and relentless. Lyria's whip wrapped around its legs, tripping it up. Valera's staff delivered a crushing blow to its head, while Elena used a pulse grenade to disable its shields. Ethan seized the opportunity, plunging his blade into the warrior's exposed chest. The creature let out a final roar before collapsing, its massive form shaking the ground. As the last of the Skarn were subdued, the hall fell silent. A new beginning. In the aftermath of the attack, the delegates and nobles looked to Ethan and the sisters with newfound respect. Their unity and bravery had turned the tide of the battle, proving the strength of their alliance. King Daryan addressed the crowd, his voice firm and commanding. Tonight, we have seen what true unity looks like. Let this be a lesson to us all. Together, we are stronger than any force that seeks to divide us. The ceremony continued, though it was now more than a symbolic gesture. It was a celebration of triumph, resilience, and hope for the future. A bond forged in fire. Later that evening, as the hall emptied and the festivities wound down, Ethan and the sisters found themselves alone in the gardens. The tension that had once defined their relationship was gone, replaced by a quiet camaraderie. You were incredible out there, Ethan said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. Lyria smiled faintly. We had a good leader. Valera smirked. Don't let it go to your head, human. Elena laughed softly. I think we've earned the right to call him Ethan. Ethan chuckled. I'll take it. As they stood beneath the glowing trees, the stars above them glittering like 1,000 possibilities, the four of them felt the weight of the moment. Their union, once a source of mockery and doubt, had become something far greater. Together, they would face whatever challenges the galaxy threw at them. And together, they would forge a future that neither humanity nor Zenithus could have imagined alone.